Good evening, everybody. Tom Kaczynski here. Welcome to the evening show. We don't usually do that many evening shows, but I did tell you we were going to try to put a few more in, and today's going to be one of those days. So, thank you for being with us here on the program. And a story came across my attention over on Telegram. Join our group t.me/Atlantic Homeland. I want to thank Milk Mom for sharing this, as well as the people at East Coast Intel, Elievo's good group over there on Telegram, for putting some stuff out there. And today, what we're going to talk about on the show, we're going to talk about something called Xenobots. And I want you to understand what the cutting edge version of what reality is being sculpted around us. And, as we talk about this idea we expressed this morning about speciation, where we're literally dealing with, God in the image, or excuse me, man in the image of his creator, God, versus a rebuilt system from the ground up with technology integrated at every aspect of life. People say, oh, that's crazy. That's a million years away. That's never going to happen. Well, we're going to go right into that. And we're going to go into this with a piece from the Weiss Institute. That's a research facility through Harvard University. And it pains me to show you how many terrible things come out of New England. We've been having bad ideas pretty much since the moment the revolution ended. So it's just one of those problems. Good to see you, Patches. Good to see everyone who's here. I know the evening crew, I don't get to see you guys as much, so I thought coming on for a little bit and joining you might be a welcome departure. For anyone who wants to support the program, I'm trying to do a lot more content. I actually made a conscientious choice today to really double down on my efforts, what I'm doing with this program, what I'm doing with the goal of trying to reach more people, and of course, what we are doing between Dana, myself, and everyone involved with it with Sons of Dust Ministry, the idea that we're trying to get people awake into the fight that's right in front of us. So, good to see you all. Don't know how long this is going to go, but I am going to read the article to you. And I will say I posted a link to the article for those who are watching if you want to read along in the community page. If not, you go to weiss.harvard.edu. This is too long of a thread, and I can't type it in because I'm doing this on the phone. So, but I do have a computer right behind me, so I can read it to you. So we're going to read this, and I'm going to interject comments to you. Like I said, this is directly from the Weiss Institute. This was published on November 29th, 2021. And then if the phone is kind enough to continue without shutting down, what we will do is I'll talk a little bit about consequences from what we were talking about this morning, which is that, and I would remind you, we live in a world now where many people have given over their natural immune system to one that has to be constantly genetically modified, opening the door whereby biotech will be used to change the nature of what we do, first as a matter of survival, then as a matter of choice. And what that means for the future is that the people who choose to go with that process will be all in, and there'll be a certain baseline of aesthetics, and then the people who choose to remain human, as we've known it up to this point, will be targeted by that system. It's an inevitability. The tribes are forming. You can already see it. And you can see, if you've been on Twitter at all, you can see how miserable they are in terms of how much damage they want to see done to people who are just trying to protect their own health and their humanity. It's really, there's an inhumane aspect about it of people who I think generally who are mad about decisions they made that are hurting their own health. But let's talk about Xenobots for a minute. So the headline reads here, Team Builds First Living Robots That Can Reproduce, by Joshua Brown, University of Vermont Communications. And the subheader is AI-designed Xenobots, that's Xenobots, reveal entirely new form of biological self-replication promising for regenerative medicine. And there's actually video with this if you want to go check it out, so I recommend it. But I'll read it to you and then offer some thoughts as we go along. To persist, and this is from Burlington, Vermont. To persist, life must reproduce. Over billions of years, organisms have evolved many ways of replicating, from budding plants to sexual animals to invading viruses. Now, scientists at the University of Vermont, Tufts University, and the Weiss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering at Harvard University have discovered an entirely new form of biological reproduction and applied their discovery to create the first ever self-replicating living robots. So, for those of you who've ever watched a program like Stargate, the nanite thing, these people looked at that and said, hey, yeah, let's go do that. Let's see how that works. So the same team that built the first living robots, Xenobots, assembled from frog cells reported in 2020, has discovered that these computer-designed and hand-assembled organisms can swim out into their tiny dish, find single cells, gather hundreds of them together, and assemble baby Xenobots inside their Pac-Man-shaped mouth. and that a few days later become new Xenobots that look and move just like themselves. And if you imagine that literally Pac-Man was having a bad dream where he looked like a chickpea and was eating stem cells that look like salt, you'd probably have a pretty good feel for what this looks like, literally, except the little white bits they're eating up are organic matter in the force of building up their own biological, or basically it's a molecular computer. Like I said, it's a Xenobot. It's basically part robot, part biological. And this is the sort of thing I've been warning you that's coming forward. So it says, and these new Xenobots can go out, find cells, and build copies of themselves again and again. With the right design, they will spontaneously self-replicate, says Joshua Barngard, PhD computer scientist and robotics expert at the University of Vermont, who co-led the new research. The results of the new research were published on November 29th, 2021 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. So if you want to know where your tax dollars are going to, they're literally going to build a microscopic version of Skynet. Fun stuff, right? So into the unknown. In a Xenopus laevis frog, these embryonic cells would develop into skin. They would be sitting on the outside of a tadpole, keeping out pathogens and redistributing mucus, says Michael Levine, PhD, a professor of biology and director of the Allen Discovery Center at the Tufts University and co-leader of the new research. But we're putting them into a new context. We're giving them a chance to reimagine their multicellularity. Levine is also an associate faculty member at the Weiss Institute. Man, I swear to God, every time, right? And what they imagine is something far different than skin. People have thought for quite a long time that we've worked out all the ways that life can reproduce or replicate, but this is something that's never been observed before, says co-author Douglas Blackiston, PhD, the senior scientist at Tufts University and the Weiss Institute, who assembled the Xenobot parents and developed the biological portion of the new study. So keep in mind, I just want you to be clear here. What they've done, and this is where the Xenobots comes from. Xeno meaning foreign, bots meaning robot, but Xeno meaning a foreign form of life. So literally what it means is a foreign form of life is that is being given robotic attributes. So it's both living and non-living. It's something weird. It's profoundly artificial, right? Let's see. And let me say hi to people. Lady M, Watchman, good to see you guys. The booster is the tweaker booster. Just 3 bites and it's game over. Yeah, it's interesting what's happening with Omicron. I was actually watching the Pfizer CEO go up there and just the crap he was spouting off. It's really bad. I mean, they really need to be smarter about this. But, anyway, let's go back to the article. I don't want to get distracted here. Let's see. So, this is profound, says Levine. These cells have the genome of a frog, but freed from becoming tadpoles, they use their collective intelligence and plasticity to do something astounding. And this is what they do with stem cells, right? In earlier experiments, the scientists were amazed that xenobots could be designed to achieve simple tasks. Remember, this is the bioengineering. The stuff you're told can't happen with boosters, already happening. Now they are stunned that these biological objects, a computer-designed collection of cells, will spontaneously replicate. We have the full unaltered frog genome, says Levine, but it gave no hint that these cells can work together on this new task of gathering and then compressing separated cells into working self-copies. These are frog cells replicating in a way that is very different from how frogs do it. No animal or plant known to science replicates in this way, says Sam Kriegman, PhD, lead author on the new study, who completed his PhD in Barngard's lab at UVM and is now a postdoctorate research at Tufts Allen Center and Harvard University's Weiss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering. I hate that phrase, by the way. God, how many bad ideas have to come out of Massachusetts? My God. On its own, the Xenobot parent, made of some 3,000 cells, forms a sphere. These can make children, but the system normally dies out after that. It's very hard, actually, to get the system to keep reproducing, says Kriegman. But with an AI program working on the Deep Green supercomputer cluster at the University of Vermont's Advanced Computing Core, an evolutionary algorithm was able to test billions of body shapes in simulation, triangles, squares, pyramids, starfish, to find the ones that allow the cells to be more effective at the motion-based kinematic replication reported in the new research. So I love that we're basically teaching these nanobots how to replicate over and over again. We're basically teaching life. We're creating competition for the bacteria. And what happens when we're fighting over resources? And people don't think, if this goes out of control, like, oh, well, we can easily kill this. There's a kill switch. Famous last words, right? The hubris is so disgusting. We asked the supercomputer at UVM to figure out how to adjust the shape of the initial parents, and the AI came out with some strange designs after months of chugging away, including one that resembled Pac Man, says Kriegman. They knew all along, right? Uh, it's very non intuitive. It looks very simple, but it's not something a human engineer would come up with. Why one tiny mouth? Why not five? We sent the results to Doug, and he built these Pac Man shaped parent Xenobots. Then those parents built children, who built grandchildren, who built great grandchildren, who built great great grandchildren. In other words, the right design greatly extended the number of generations. Kinematic replication is well known at the level of molecules, but has never been observed before at the scale of whole cells or organisms. This is the creation of artificial life, by the way. And you're going to need bacterial bases. You're going to need, if you're going to build an artificial life, if you're going to build a synthetic life, or if you're going to go into bionics and connect man to the machine, you're going to have to build machines that can do things. In graphene, you have a material that's strong enough and conductive enough for electrical impulses, for instructions to be sent by radio, to be sent by some other means, maybe biochemical. But now you're getting the tools to actually do the actual work, the cutting, the lifting, and all that. Now, part of it is you can hijack biology, and that's part of it, and it'll be resistance. But part of this is you can find new ways to do it all together, because you can take stem cells. This is why we talk about the hydra vulgaris, right? This idea of the eternal embryo, that you can just constantly keep rebirthing things. By the way, that's why stem cells work out of abortion. What you do is you halt life from real development, and you start stealing from that life. And that's sort of what you're doing. You're hijacking life, if you really think about it. You can say it's something new, and in a sense it sort of is, but in the same way that a virus is, that it's taking over its host, and eventually it's going to be destructive. And you can say, well, we built something entirely new, but this is the world of science. And look, medical types don't know this. They don't study biotech, because to them it doesn't occur. Why would you do that? For a lot of them. But I want you to see this. This is in real life. So we've discovered that there is this previously unknown space within organisms or living systems, and it's a vast space, says Bongard. How do we then go about exploring that space? We found Xenobots that walk. We found Xenobots that swim. So think about it. They're in your cells, right? They can walk along there. They can swim into your bloodstream. And now in this study, we found Xenobots that kinematically replicate. What else is out there? Or as the scientists write in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, life harbors surprising behaviors, stupid things trying to do a software update, just below the surface, waiting to be uncovered, responding to risk. Some people may find this exhilarating. Others may react with concern or even terror to the notion of self-replicating biotechnology. For a team of scientists, this goal is deeper understanding. Add me to the terror group. I don't want self-replicating biotechnology, because Lord knows it's going to be about 5 seconds before that's in your bloodstream, and maybe it already is with mRNA technology, right? We have to talk about that. This is important. Hey, Tim, good to see you. Good to see you, Watchman. Good to see you, EM. And we'll definitely say a prayer before it's all said and done here, and Lady M as well. We are working to understand this property, replication. The world and technologies are rapidly changing. It's important for society as a whole that we study and understand how this works. See, now, let me interject here. It's important as a society we talk about whether or not we should be doing this. And then when sane people decide, hey, we shouldn't be, to not be doing this. But this is what we do. We worship our tools. We go forward over and over again. We think, hey, we're just going to do this and see what happens. And trust it's all going to work out for the best. And has it worked out for the best? Well, you look at all the people who are having myocarditis and you see if you agree with that, But this is what they say. These millimeter-sized living machines entirely contained in a laboratory, easily extinguished. Notice how they put that in there, just like we had safety levels at that level 4 lab in Wuhan. Remember that stuff? I mean, people still buy this crap. It's absolutely crazy that they do, but they do. And vetted by federal, state, and institutional ethics experts. Yeah, look at what they teach for ethics. Are not what keep me awake at night. What presents the risk of the next pandemic, accelerating ecosystem damage from pollution, intensifying threats from climate change. I can't believe that they're literally building nanobots that can take over our body, and they're still talking about climate change as the concern. And they get away with this. I mean, what kind of trash is this that media allows to go forward? But they do. Says UVM's Bongard. This is an ideal system in which to study self-replicated systems. We have a moral imperative to understand the conditions under which we can control it, direct it, douse it, and exaggerate it. A moral imperative. Bongard points to the COVID epidemic and the hunt for a vaccine. The speed at which we can produce solutions matters deeply. If we can develop technologies learning from Xenobots where we quickly tell the AI, we need a biological tool that does X and Y and suppresses Z, that could be very beneficial. This is what I was telling you in the morning. They're going to go ahead and say, hey, we've got a code for that. Hacking humanity is literally what we're dealing with today. And there every problem I mean, the moment you accepted that you're going to let them play with you, you've agreed to have every Microsoft software update as your future plan for your health care. What a terrible thing to imagine, but that's where we are. Bill Gates, the Gavi group. Let's see. Today, it takes an exceedingly long time, they were saying, to solve these problems. The team aims to accelerate how quickly people can go from identifying a problem to generating solutions, like deploying living machines to pull microplastics out of waterway or build new medicines, Bongard says, or to engineer compliance, or to say this is a new economic system that can protect you. There is no limit to what they can do with this, and since when have you known humanity to know limits? We used to protect our bodily sovereignty as something, and they're just trashing it. And if they don't trash it, they'll trash it in the environment. We think, oh, this is a great solution. It's just so terrible. We need to create technological solutions that grow at the same rate as the challenges we face, Bongard says. And the team sees promise in the research for advancements toward regenerative medicine. They always promise you the miracle cure. What they don't tell you is they create every sickness that makes you need it. If we knew how to tell collections of cells to do what we wanted them to do, ultimately that's regenerative medicine. That's the solution to traumatic injury, birth defects, cancer, and aging, says Levine. All these different... and you're trusting them to get it right. You're literally trusting them to know better than nature, which move carefully, and over God, but put this all together. It's just absolutely crazy. All these different problems are here because we don't know how to predict and control what groups of cells are going to build. Xenobots are a new platform for teaching us. And they trust these computers like this Deep Green at University of Vermont. Like our code is that brilliant, or we have solutions. I mean, it's just... You guys can see. I'd say I'm losing my hair, but I don't have any, right? All right, so let's see. There's a publication, kinesmatic self-replication reconfigurable organisms. That's the end of the article. It's a press release, right? But I wanted to read this to you. And why do I want to read this to you? This is just the latest example, and we could do more. I could sit here all day. Maybe I have to do that one day. Maybe I have to just go onto the DARPA website and read to you what they're trying to do, because this is just like stuff they're putting out to the public. Who knows what they have in private? I just assume certain people have more nefarious purposes are quietly going forward with all these other bigger things. But I wanted to share this with you so that you have one clear thought as we go forward with this, which is that I've been trying to explain to you that, we are reaching a spot where technology is forcing us to understand that this whole game has changed. People are waiting for it to go back to normal, waiting for the next election, waiting for the next court ruling, waiting for the mandate to be imposed or not imposed. And what I'm telling you is we are now in a new epoch. We're in an epoch where humanity as it was is fighting against humanity as it will be envisioned by the zealots who, in their religion of scientism, think technology can make something that's better than man by destroying us. And whether that ends up being occupied by some foreign intelligence, whether that's artificial in terms of just a machine, whether that's something that'll be occupied by something worse, you can go wherever your thoughts and speculation want to. And you know where I think it is. I've told you that more than one time. But what I'm telling you is that we need to see this is not reality 20 years from now. This isn't something we need to begin worrying about long. This is the reality of what exists today, is already being implemented, and that we have now saw the majority of the people in our country and in a lot of our countries subscribe to this. I had a number of people after this morning say to me, well, Tom, they probably exaggerated the numbers. Okay, let's say they exaggerated the numbers. Let's say only 1 in 2 people are on board with this. That's still 1 in 2 people too many. And while I do think there is some number inflation in there, I do expect the majority of people have complied because people are not resistant. They trust the system. They trust what's out there. And ultimately, the reality is in our society, we trust technology. We have the idea that technology can solve any problem it creates, including the problems of its own. And what I'm telling you is we are on the verge of creating problems we will never be able to solve. That's what we have to do. And we need to take a big step back, a big breath, and say, those of us who see this sanely are not going to be a party to it. We're not going to be involved, and we have to do whatever is required to stand up and resist this, because the day may come where our humanity, our species may be gone because of these choices that have been made. And I want you to understand that. And this is the second part of the program, right? Then, because I was thinking about this today. The hardest thing in all of that is that you're going to have to begin thinking of things in a totally different way. Like I said to my wife earlier today, literally, we're in a spot where now I believe we are in tribulation, right? So, what I was going to say is that I literally have to think about things differently. I have to make decisions not for what will make financial sense for now, 6 months from now, or 5 years from now. I'm not making decisions on that basis. I'm not making decisions of what will make my life more comforting. I'm making my decisions of what are these existential threats that I'm going to have to survive that I know I do not question they will be out there. I know they're coming out there. I know that the majority of people are going to go with them. I know that the state is going to support them. I know it will be endorsed and enforced on people. What are the decisions that have to be made now so that I have a chance to survive this? And that is a very different way of thinking and of being. And it's going to be alienating because most people are living in the learned habits of a lifetime of a world that no longer exists. And whether you choose to think that it changed because COVID and the interventions of that, I could present that case, but really it was the search for knowledge that we went on that made it impossible for us to consider any other way to do this. And as you begin thinking about that, the challenge I want to present to each of you, because you're smart people, but you're also people who pride yourself a little too much in your pragmatism. What you have to begin to understand is it forces a radical rethink in terms of how you think about your own life and what you're doing and what you're willing to contemplate. Like literally, I'm at a spot where I think if the worst thing that came out of this was a return to the dark ages, where we didn't have the access to these technologies and we had to reset society and hope that humanity might find a little more wisdom the next time around, I'm actually pretty okay with that. I think that's one of the better outcomes that could be imagined because as we go down the line with these sort of technologies, all it takes is one mistake and the species is done. And we know that whether or not that does happen, we know that the people who have bad intentions, your Klaus Schwab type people who've been working on these things for decades, now literally have millions, billions potentially of people signed up as volunteers beyond their ability to say no to be part of this system. And the worse the behaviors get, the more they will beg for the same people to help them. And I want people to understand that that challenge is where we are now at. I was thinking of writing a book about it because I think someone needs to say it. But I think it's so far ahead of time, people won't really understand it. Literally, the World War III we're fighting is a battle of speciation between the people who are defending their organic humanity versus people who no longer will play along that system because they just don't have the choice. They voluntarily, or in some cases through ignorance, involuntarily surrendered that in agreeing to be part of this huge experiment where now we are re-rigging how the code works. And there's a difference between doing something to the body that's a little bit different, right? It's in the old days, if you took an experimental medicine, basically you were going to see how your body reacted to it. But your body more or less remained your body. Now it does not remain your body. Now you have a new genetic code. Now you have new programming. You have new language. You have new instructions. You have new things you're making, and the rest of your body doesn't know how to fit. You've basically Frankensteined yourself. Now you have to think of things very, very differently. And I want people to begin asking that question a lot more. And I had to ask that question today. I faced a real life crisis about it. And I'll just say to it, I'll put it to you blunt. I had an opportunity to take something that would have been economically lucrative for myself, okay? That would have made my life easier. And I sat there and I thought, what is my duty? Is it to go out there and speak truth, to go ahead and speak God's truth? Is it to speak truth about the things being done to mankind? Or is it to hide and stay out of the way? Or Dane has the exact right word. That's renegade carbon units. Her the literally vexicide, right? And you can figure out what that stands for. What do we have the responsibility, who are aware of this, to now stand up for the interest of our species and say, hey, wait a second, we need to stop this now, not months from now, not when more people are gone, because we're getting to the point where there will not be critical mass enough to stop this, even if we wanted to. All there will be is people running, fleeing, and hoping for the best. And you know what? You could say, well, that's the advancement of that. A species comes along with greater intelligence, greater organization, not tripped by emotion, and it takes over. And maybe that's the future. That's the future they want. That future where we don't die, we live forever, we're a part machine. It's some nightmare. But I don't know. I don't want to be a part of it, and I have to act now. It's not enough. I can't live with myself if I sit back and I don't do all I can do. So here I am doing all I can do, and I'm going to speak to it, and I'm going to try to do more. I'm going to try to organize people. I'm going to try to scare people because they need to be scared. And I'm going to write the books, and we'll put it together. And I don't want to write these things. I'll probably get banned for writing them because I'm going against settled science. I'm telling you what's really going to happen, and I'm just sure I share this one story with you. We could spend, like I said, and how many more more stories. Yeah, you want more stories? Go to JWTV. He does 100 of those a day. Go to Ice Age Farmer. He does a whole bunch of these types of stories. We could go through. There are people who cover these things. Go find any of the TED Talks. I mean, it's not like it's a secret. Look at the people who study the singularity. They celebrate this stuff. This is what they worship. I mean, and I think if we've succeeded in one thing, we had a really good conversation in the Homeland today over on Telegram. The one thing that we've succeeded on is we helped people understand you're fighting a religion. Go read the Homo Deus book if you don't believe me. We are fighting against people who have the belief that the combination of man with machine is going to be what saves our species, saves our world, and builds us into something else. It also will turn us into inanimate objects working on a code that has no meaning. A created substance without creator lives in a meaningless random universe. Kinez was doing a great job. He was sharing with this. It's called, oh God, what's it called? It's called like a Christian view. I wish I could remember the name of it. Actually, you know what? I'll look it up. Give me a second. It's actually important enough that I'm going to take the second and I'm going to look this up here. I'm going to tell you the name of the book that he mentioned because it was that good and I want you to have the name of it. And there was this great quote in it. And I want you to hear this quote because it's good enough that it warrants the attention I'm going to give it. And I don't like pausing in the middle of my stream, but I'm going to do it because it's literally that important. And you're just going to have to trust me. You are a captive audience. It's not fair, but it is the way the world works. I'll give you 1 second here to find this because I want to read this quote. It was perfectly said. And I want to give him credit for it. Where did I go? We were talking romantics. That's not the one I want to read. We have some really smart quotes, by the way. We have some crazy people, but we know some things. I mean, it's kind of crazy how many things we actually do know when it comes down to it. But let's see if I can find this here. If I can, what's the name of the damn book? 1 second here. I'm not doing a very good job of this, but let me see if I can, give me 1 second here. All right, I'll have it in 1 second for you. So the book, what page up? We were talking about 1 second. I do apologize. It was a very busy day in the chat, and I'm having to scroll through it, but I want to read this to you because I think it's sufficiently interesting. And for those of you who... did I lose it? Alright, it's got to be around here. I just went past it. Where was it? God, I just don't seem to be able to succeed today. I'm just here. Okay, here we go. This is the name. Rushdoony's Biblical Philosophy of History. When man makes himself and his reason God over creation, he thereupon destroys all meaning in creation and leaves himself chained in a gibbering baboon, sitting in terror on a wired electric chair in the midst of a vast universe of nothingness. Every non-biblical philosophy of history ends by destroying both man and history. It's an absolutely great quote, and it's really where we've ended up here in this story. And people don't realize that. People can't accept that, and they refuse to accept that. But what we are doing is we are trying to rebuild the world in our own image, and as we rebuild it in our image, what we've reached is the point where the world no longer makes sense of it. It's just it's so crazy that we've accepted this, and we say, well, this is just the way it has to be, and this is what technology permits, and this is what technology requires, and we just have to go forward with it because we don't have a better choice about that. That's where it's at. And where's it go to? I'll give you an example. Okay, these are some of the quotes we get in here. This is a different quote, but it's a great story from Dr. John Coleman, The Conspirators' Hierarchy, the story of the Committee of 300. And this was written, I think, in the 80s. I'm familiar with this book. Listen to what they said, that this is what they said they were planning to do. At least 4 billion useless eaters shall be eliminated by the year 2050 by means of limited wars, organized epidemics, and fatal rapid-acting disease and starvation. Energy, food, and water shall be kept at subsistence levels for the non-elite, starting with the white populations of Western Europe, North America, and then spreading to other races. The population of Canada, Western Europe, and the U.S. will be decimated more rapidly than on other continents until the world's population reaches a manageable level of 1 billion, of which 500 million will consist of Chinese and Japanese, selected because there are people who have been regimented for centuries and who are accustomed to obeying authority without question. If you go out there and you look, and we have people who look and we have this awareness and this knowledge, we can talk about these things. This is what's out there. This is what the elites want to do to us, and this is their view of history, that they want to go ahead and just engineer us into something that's easily controlled, that fits nice in a tidy box. And this is what we're looking at. And I just picked that because the conspiracy of the 300, and you look at these groups who are groups above groups, World Economic Forum, you can go back and chase these hidden oligarchies, and they think that, hey, they're going to be the man above the machine. They're the ones writing the code. But in the end, they are still giving worship to dark forces, too. And as you create super intelligences, you're going to draw attention to things above. Think of it this way, that atoms in your body probably don't know what cells are doing. Cells don't necessarily know what whole organs are doing, and you may only have vague awareness of what your organs are doing. Your organs certainly have no awareness that they're part of Tom or Mark or Jane or Joe or any of those things. And in the same way, things above us probably exist the same way, but we start making things that gets the rest of the world interested, the parts that are above us, because Lord knows we're not at the top of the food chain. Far from it, as much as we like to imagine that. We're far too clueless to ever think that way. What's going to happen when those forces start coming down and we draw attention to them? We're already listening to them saying, hey, listen to little voices in the box. They're going to be our friends. Technology, yay, voices. That's why they talk about UFOs all the time. Let me tell you the greatest conspiracy of UFOs. People have been looking for aliens as an explanation for the demons that have been around us since the very beginning. Why? Because we have something that's foreign that we think that we can understand and relate to. They can put it out in plain sight. So when you see them bring that stuff forward, I'm just telling you, the reason why they're doing it is they're trying to make something that should be evil to you approachable by making it seem it's a little strange. Remember what C.S. Lewis told you in Screw Tape Letters through the infamous, demon, that the greatest trick that was ever pulled, what the devil did, was convince you that, he didn't exist, that nothing's evil, it's just new and it's novel and we can accept these things. Xenobots, yeah, it's great, it's going to make things better, everything's going to cure cancer. Do you think Big Pharma would cure cancer if it could? Of course they wouldn't. There's no money in it. Do you think they want to have people healthy? They've been telling you from moment one they don't want that. They want war. They want division. They don't want us getting along. They don't want us having belief. They don't want us having truth. It's never been tried. And it's probably not ever going to be. Not this side of heaven. Not this side of New Jerusalem in any case. Hopefully the Lord will come down quickly to rescue us and save us. And it's late at night, so I'm allowing myself to wander a little bit. I'm spending some time with you guys, my friends, and giving some words out to you and hopefully giving you something you find some value in as a program. But what I'm telling you, two things. Number one is the integration of electronics, bionics as it is, into people is ongoing. Tim there is talking about Max Tegmark's Life 3.0. Another example of something you could look at that would say how this is going forward. Why do you hear about all the talk about aliens? Because aliens are A, a distraction, and B, a way the demonic can enter into our realm and not be forward there. You want to go something? I'll guarantee you, I'll make you a prediction right now and take it to the bank. Demons will get pissed, or aliens will be pissed off if you talk about Jesus. I even know this. I'll tell you a real personal story that I haven't told many times. When I was a kid, I used to have these terrible fears of aliens and these terrible things of these beings, and I'd imagine all these things. And it was when I started being known the power of the name of Jesus, I could say that they'd go away, and there is a power there, because what were we doing? We were casting out demons. I mean, think about it. They were, you guys probably remember the stories about cattle mutilations and bloody noses and all these things. Well, what went after blood? Vampires. What goes after blood? Things that want sangre. They want life. They want that which is sacred. And the same thing you hear, adrenochrome, all this crap, that they've been taking from kids for years. And even these injections. Remember old Mr. Burns, Jacob Rothschild himself. He would go forward and he would do these things. And the same stories just get repackaged as folk tales to hide what's in plain sight. At an honest age where, we understood there were things beyond our ability to see that existed, and they were real because we weren't blinded by our sight and by this falsehood of objectivity. We understood we were living in a world where we dealt with demonic influences as a regular thing. And we also understood that technology was something that was dangerous in a lot of ways, that you were giving tools over. What is it they say? An idle mind is the devil's workshop. Well, so are tools that can be used for any purpose. And we assume, we just have control over them. But now we don't. Now we're building self-replicating Xenobots. And where does it end? Nowhere. No one's going to stop this. No one's going to regulate it. No one even cares. No one even understands. The people in charge are just robbing us blind. The people who really are making decisions are building a world where people will be irrelevant, and they're using the technology like they did in that Utopia show to just go ahead and build themselves a new species and say the heck with the rest of us. And what are we doing? We're worried about how we're going to pay our bills. We're worried about not getting carted off by their hired thugs over at federal law enforcement. And that hurts me. I know a lot of federal LEOs at this point. Most of them are good guys I get along with. And you know what? You need to now step up for the species. You need to recognize there's more things that owe to your laws, and you need to realize you have a fundamental loyalty that you owe to people like yourself. If you don't want to do it for anyone else, do it for your own kids. Because now people aren't going to be able to have kids the same way. It's already happening. How many stillborn people? How many miscarriages? And we're just going to watch it? I mean, it's not bad enough that we just had abortion celebrated. You know what I saw today? I'm not even making this up. The Satanic Church is suing in Texas, saying they have a legal right to abortions as a religious ritual. This is what they'll probably do. They'll probably try to bring abortions back, saying, well, you have a right to infanticide. Heavenly Father, please remove Babylon from the map, for the love of God, please. What did that? Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say anymore. I am sort of stupefied. I've reached the point where I am now nonverbal, and I've reached the point where I can barely participate in society. And even doing this is a challenge. We are in Revelation, Lady M. We are in Revelation. And Lord knows, for those of you out there, especially if you're a Christian, please pray for me. Pray for Dana, too, but pray for us. We are just... because we know too much. And if you watch this channel, you know too much, too. You probably write it off and say, oh, well, Tom's the crazy guy. He doesn't know. I know. I wish it didn't sometimes, but what are we going to do about it? That's my question to each of you. I mean, I don't have the answer to that. I wish I did. I don't. I'm going to shut this computer off because I don't have it charged up enough, but I don't know what the answers are from here. I know that there's a lot more stuff out there. I do know one thing I want to mention. I mentioned it this morning, but I continue to watch it. China and Russia are doing funny things. Maybe they'll have a war beforehand. They want to get rid of a lot of people. I mean... it's a worldwide thing. The elites who are in charge. It's just funny to me, too. People go to me and they send and say, hey, there's a great ruling. There was a judge who ruled this. Like, there were 10 states today I was reading that, had their Medicare or Medicaid funding mandates held up. I know New Hampshire was one of them. A lot of states in the South. And they were saying, oh, well, this means this isn't going to happen. You think they're resetting the whole globe and destroy the economy? You think the bankers are going to let a little thing like a judge somewhere stop this? This freight train is rolling off the tracks. And if you think it's going to stop, you're nuts. It's not happening. I mean, they'll collapse America before they allow the obsolescence of the idea of citizen sovereignty to stand in the way of this. And I think you know that. It's like Watchman said, referencing Revelation 12. Absolutely. We're on that path, and we're on the path to the beast system. You look at how this is being used to put forward the social credit scores, and you look at all these apps that are being made with compliance. I was reading that in British Columbia, Canada's on their way to getting their camps, and I had someone else tell me that, another article I said about them emptying federal prisons. Well, what did I tell you? There's your quarantine camps right there. And we're all going to be on the wrong side of that list. And the thing is, we have to get to them before they get to us. And we have to begin organizing ourselves. And am I threatening violence? I'm saying that we need to have the opportunity to get out. And we know that you know. That's it, man. Great movie, by the way. I know you're not going there, but if you ever want to watch a great 80s movie, go watch The Burbs. We know that they know that we know. Gotta get in there. Let them know you're there. The guy who played Art in that movie was an absolutely great actor who never got his chance. He was the perfect 80s wingman. It was just funny how sometimes people do. I forget his name. It doesn't really matter. Anyway. But an evening show. You like evening shows, so here I am. And I'm tapering off. I'll be back in the morning, I'm sure, with more stuff to upset you. We'll see whatever I read out there in the news sequence. And, you know how much I read in the morning. But we got to do better than we've done. We got to do more. We got to do a lot more, and we don't have time. And I want to invite you to think, what do you believe is true? And how should you order your life? And that's the question I want to leave you with. Because for me, it used to be about, I had to make sure I had enough money. I had to make sure I did things. But I'm under a couple assumptions. Assumption number one, time is very short before all the choices that seemed meaningful before are gone from us. I assume within a year from now, I will not be able to buy or sell. I will be boxed out of the system. I will not be able to hold a standard job. And I'm going to have to survive in that world. And that means I got to have a lot of friends and the ability to not have force be used to pick us off one by one. Those are assumptions I make. Does that make me a paranoid person? Yeah. But am I paranoid enough You tell me. This has moved pretty fast in the last 2 years. Assumption number two I make is that the people who are on board with the genetic modification agenda have to stay on board with it for their own survival, and that most people, even if they could choose death as a means to protect their soul, are not going to do so. Maybe 1 in 10 will. Maybe 1 in 4 will. Maybe I'm not being generous enough. But in any case, it's a very small number. The other thing is we need to find, my third assumption is people need to find means of organize where they don't let money or the pragmatism of the habits they have of a dying world keep them from the survival mechanisms they will need in a new one. And I invite others who are thinking that way to join that conversation with me. And we need to have group conversations. We need to talk about this. This needs to be spawning things where those of us who are not going on board with this, or those of us who are trying to recant from it, that we can begin having this conversation. How do we pull back from this? How do we pull out of this system? You know, people used to talk about walking away during the election. How do we walk away from Mystery Babylon? How do we walk away from genetic abomination? How do we walk away from the abomination of desolation? Use the terms of Daniel. That's what I want to know. And people say, oh, Tom, you're being ridiculous. If I'm wrong, it's only as a matter of time. You all know I'm right about the trajectory of this because it's the trajectory of human history. And some of us hope that they screw up so bad that we get a reset where we go back to the steampunk age or something. And maybe we do. And maybe it just gets so bad where we just try to survive long and Jesus comes along. Some people hope they'll get raptured. I think that's terrible theology. Some people think they just survive to the end and there's a heavenly kingdom. Hopefully we can make it there. I pray we can. Most people will not. That's what the Bible says. And maybe a more terrifying thought than any of this, maybe it isn't the end. Maybe this is just the next step in a sad and sorry path, but what's going to be left of humanity to speak to it? And do we care enough to save it? Because those of us who understand this, we're just trying to hide and wait to be the last one picked off. It's a losing strategy. It's a Magno-line strategy, and it's not good enough. And we need to win this battle. And the battle begins by winning it with logic and winning it with persuasion and winning it with these arguments and putting these out there. So you guys have to take the arguments that make sense to you, and you have to make them your own, and you have to live them, and you have to speak them, and you have to do it. I'll do what I can do. I'll try to give you the big ideas. I'll write the book to put it out there. I'll serve as the heat shield. You know, I got my big dome of a head that looks like some friggin' missile silo. I'll go stick it out there, let my beard burn up and look like some medieval terror, you know, stepped right out of, like Savonarola stepping out of Florence. And I'll go ahead and I'll do my part. But it's going to take more than one person. It's going to take more than us. We're going to have to keep banging away. We're going to have to fight with the same level of zealotry. And I know zealotry is not something people are good at, being that passionate and that willing. But hey, species is on the line, folks. Got to step up. Souls are being lost. Spirit is abandoning us because we've left it. I mean, it's not that God ever stopped being faithful. It's that we've been so faithless that he can't even stand us anymore. And it makes me sick. It makes me sad. Heavenly Father, just pray you forgive us. You forgive us these abominations that we're birthing and that we've strayed so far from you, you know? I just pray. I have to pray a lot more these days. I literally, you know, today was a big day for me. I rededicated myself to God in an even bigger way because I knew if I did certain things to try to survive in this world, I wouldn't be doing God's work as much as I need to. And at this point, seeing the imminence of the end, I'm like, I'm going to be in a position where I can say to God, God, I tried my very best to overcome all the crappy things I don't like about myself and do something good for you. And I tell you what God doesn't like. God doesn't like when people think that they can do their code better than he did. And that's what humanity's doing. That's what we're doing. We're giving the tools over. We're trying to remake ourselves in our own image. I mean, it's, you talk about regression. We're trying to follow the knowledge of the tree of good and evil to its logical end. We're letting the serpent redesign us. I mean, even you look at that meta code. I mean, what do you think that bent infinity symbol is? It's the Kundalini spirit. You know, they might look at it as a positive thing in Buddhist and Hindu traditions, but basically it's a big old snake leading people astray into giving them a mystical experience without giving them the real reality of what truth is. And the truth is we were created by a creator who had rules that were sent to save us, and we didn't, you know, we didn't follow them. And now we've got to come back, and we've got to fight faith with faith. We've got to fight fire with fire. And you're not going to persuade people. I mean, that's the one thing. A lot of people say, oh, well, I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to persuade people. People who are on board with this agenda, they're doubling down on it. They don't have another choice. they're going to defend their wrong decisions, and they're going to attack the people who told them they're wrong. Believe me, I've been out there for many years saying things that are unpopular and yet true, and you just get torched. Court legality for you. Acts 5:29, Matthew 8:5. I'm going to go back and check all these out too, because I thank you for the biblical references. I don't have my Bible in front of me here. Or wait, do I maybe? I might have it because it's downstairs. I actually do. Let's check. I'll read, because I'm always for reading a verse. Let's see what he brought up here, because I think that's a good idea. Let's see. Acts 5:29. Here we go. Put it on the spot. My beat up Bible. You got to have one of these. It's important. Acts 5:29. But Peter and his apostles replied, "We must obey God rather than obey men." That's a great line. That's a great line. We'll use that one for today. And that's what you got to do. You got to obey God. And people aren't ready to obey God because it's not convenient. I mean, you're going to be hated. I mean, you're already hated. The only question is if you're going to wait till they go ahead and we're going to go meekly. I don't want to go meekly. I'm not going to sit and wait. I'm tired of being on the defensive. I'm going on the offensive. We're going to speak truth, and I'm going to look for numbers, and I'm going to try to gather people, and I'll build a podcast again, and I'll do morning work, and I'll do all the things, and I'll get the hit pieces written about me. I mean, I love the groups that used to do it. Vice. Let's see who else we had. Vanity Fair. The Daily Beast. I mean, how the hell do we have something called the Daily Beast and we don't say, why did something pick such a satanic name? Oh, this is a legitimate news source. They're a bunch of hacks with demonic influences. I think it'd be great if we have transgenders in 70 different versions. What a way to have doctrines of demons hide right in front of us and we surrender our kids to them every day. We have no one to blame but ourselves, man. We all saw it and we all looked the other way. I'm so mad about it. And I did too, because I didn't want the problem. I mean, how far can I run away? I mean, you name every little town in Maine under 1,000 people that's near a border and be far away. I've lived there at this point. It's just like, what are we running from? We gotta be running to the fight. We gotta have the courage of lions. And we have to have the courage to be willing to impose on people what they would not do for themselves. And I know that's a hard thing, but if we don't do it that socially, we surrender our kids to them. I know you're not ready for that. I'm still not good with it because we grew up in an era where, if it's for good for me and it's libertarian, it's choice and it's free will, we just can't do that. We can't do that anymore. We have to understand liberty's license. I mean, it wasn't meant to be liberty and justice. It was meant to be virtue and liberty, and virtue had to precede liberty, because absent that, you knew it was going to become doctrines of devils, and they knew it. And they made all these stories and all these things to change people. And now we're in that way. Now we are building the things that are going to replace us. We have brought death unto life. That's what artificiality is. And we're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And we're not ready to do it. We're like, okay, well, I'm going to prepare and I'm going to survive this. It's not enough to survive it. We have to go and destroy some things. And I know people aren't ready for that, Legal legality. The court, as long as you are in the Spirit of God, no authority. It's in the Constitution. We can follow the Bible. It's too bad we have Talmudic courts with judges, right? But, I mean, I'll tell you this. If we had enough numbers, it wouldn't matter what they said. Because, I mean, we are at a point, you guys do realize this, we're at a point where we have collapsed sovereignty, where things that are legal in one area are not legal in others, where if one person commits a crime and looks a certain way, they'll get away with it, and another person won't. And whatever you believe it is, what we have is a breakdown of universal rules. We are in civilizational collapse mode, and they're fine with it. It's been engineered because it gives an excuse to go ahead and put other things out there, and it's a distraction that prevents it prevents people from organizing in a way against the sort of things that are out there. If we lived in a sane society, even people who supported these mandates and the treatments, the injections that were out there, would be looking at the evidence of the number of people, the unexplained deaths that's happening for no cause, right? Or the youth, or just situation with the youth heart attack thing. There's 100 different things, but they've given us enough distractions and they've given enough propaganda to overwhelm people's sense of reason, because people have always been willing to go for dogmas, and the more scientific you make it sound. I mean, it said this. Aldous Huxley said this exactly in New World. Mustafa Mann goes there, the world controller, and he says to them, he's like, we give people the illusion of science. We give them safe science. We give them things where there's always progress and there's always efficiency, but we don't actually want to change anything, because true disruption is dangerous to the system, and they don't want disruption. One of the three temptations, writes Lady M. Why hunger, turn the rock to bread, throw yourself off the cliff, won't be hurt, the kingdom is good. Yeah, that's exactly true, actually, that Jesus was tempted, and he knew not to question God, and not to force him to do things. But God's going to expect us to do a little bit more, and I'm just telling every one of you, and I'm telling myself this more than anybody, we got to step up, people. We got to step up, and it's got to be us. We recognize this. And I know none of you want this burden. The last thing I want to do is throw a burden at you. It's not a fun thing for a program, believe me. But time is short, and we got to do something. So you guys come up with some ideas. You have talents. You have skills. Your IQs are on average 2 standard deviations above. Some of you even more than that. So we got to do something. And just before I go, I just pray that the Father make sure this broadcast doesn't get canceled. That the algorithm doesn't understand what we're saying. Gibberish it up for us, please, Father, and protection for everyone watching this. And give us the encouragement. Give us whatever forces you can do to help out and help us put these battles together. And we'll talk more about it, and you're going to see me more. I'm coming around more, and bring some people with you. We'll have the conversation. I'm going to try to get some of my smart friends on here and get some conversations recorded and share some information. James is one of those people. He's a smart guy, who's seen the dark side of life and go forward and actually figure out a way to begin resisting these sort of things and begin offering an alternative and at least give us a chance. Because as it is now, we're not even stepping up. We're just going to be run through before the battle even begins, and it breaks my heart, especially for the kids, for the people who never had a chance. And it's just so many people in such ignorance. It's just astounding to me because some of this stuff is really obvious. I mean, I know some of this isn't that easy, but even just the obvious thing of who gets sick and who doesn't, and why they don't, and the promises weren't being delivered on, and the people have learned to accept such mediocrity as a necessity, and they think it's the best they can get. It's really tragic how low we think of ourselves. I mean, and I'm an expert at self-loathing in ways you can't even begin to understand. But I mean, on the other hand, that we were no accidents and that we have these skills and abilities. And so what I say to everybody is, work on your spiritual wellness until you can do something more. And in the meantime, we'll keep working on it, keep putting out the Lord's word where we can, keep telling people these technologies, and help them to understand the power of the possibilities that we need to go out there and speak against. And hopefully that awakens people. So I think I've gone long enough. I've gone nearly an hour. The wife will certainly want me to, come to bed. Great quote, by the way, Lady M. Ephesians 6:10, full armor of God. We absolutely need that. Get ready for your spiritual warfare. Maybe the missus will come on and share some tips and pointers with you on that. It's something she specializes in, and does a very good job with as part of our ministry, trying to help people. And as always, we tell people, I'll tell you something else we do. Some of you know, some of you don't, but it's no secret. We keep a very long prayer list that we go through periodically of every one of our friends and family of people who've taken this, especially those who are wanting people to come away from it. And if there's someone who's in there who made a bad decision, I mean, I'm not going to say there's not going to be a consequence, but I hope and I pray that the Lord will have mercy on your souls, and that there's an opportunity still. I mean, as long as you can think about it and you can ask God, go forward for it, because God can do anything. And if we don't begin accepting that fact, we have no chance in that. We are now at the point where we need divine intervention. Otherwise, always start with Deus Ex Machina, and the Machina is moving pretty fast these days. So let's see if we do a little better on that. God bless each and every one of you. I hope you have a very good evening. Like I said, I probably will be back around tomorrow morning. I'll have some news stuff for you. We'll see what's in the stories out there. I'm going to talk more about China, Russia, Ukraine. I've been keeping an eye on some of that stuff. And yeah, I'm going to go relax and go to bed. That's what I'm going to do. The general in the spiritual army. Well, I'm going to try to speak the good word. This pastoral work isn't what I planned for myself. It changes you in ways you can't begin to understand, because people are in strong delusion. Lady M's right. But we now have to step up, and I will do what I can. I don't know if I'm a general or this, but I know this. You guys are my brothers and sisters, and we are all fighting for our King, the King of Kings, the Lord Jesus Christ. So God bless every one of you, and let's go ahead and show these robots that they are not, the no creation of man can stand up against the creation of God. And you know what? That's you and me. Remember that. God bless you guys. Have a great